If you're a first-time home buyer looking for a deal on a great property, but you can't seem to find one, there may be a strategy left for you. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this. Hey everybody, welcome to Info on the Go. We make understanding real estate clear, calm, and concise. And today I'm going to be talking about foreclosures. Yeah, I know it's a little bit of a taboo right now, but we got to talk about it because there are some first-time buyers out there who have been overpriced in this overinflated market that are wondering where the deals are. And this is one of the places that they're looking for is in foreclosures. Now, when we look at the data back in June, the numbers suggest that about 7% of homeowners were in early delinquency on their mortgages, which means they're about 30 days past due. Now that number is up over 3% or more than 3% versus the same time last year. Combine that with all the uncertainty about what a lot of the companies are going to do as we continue into this pandemic. They could be further furloughing employees, they could be laying people off, or some have even filed bankruptcy and are closing their doors. Those numbers could cause the unemployment rate to skyrocket, right? And if that happens, that means that people don't have money to pay for their mortgages, which would also suggest that foreclosures are going to spike. But let's look a little bit further into the data. Let's talk about the federal moratorium, right? So the moratorium was supposed to end on August 31st, but the government extended it out to the end of the year. So that gives some homeowners a chance to kind of figure things out, right? But once that moratorium ends, we don't know what's going to happen. And that's where we could see the spike in foreclosures. Now, a lot of people thought that every homeowner was going to take advantage of the forbearance, right? That's not actually the case. We were estimating that about a third of homeowners would take advantage of it. The truth is that number spiked at about 9%. Now it's down to about 7.5% for those who are actually looking to take advantage of forbearance. But among those who are, most of them are actually current in their mortgages. And if they're not current, they've been doing things like refinancing, or they've actually sold their homes in order to pay back the loan, so they're not part of those numbers in terms of foreclosure, right? So what are we talking about here? How, as a first-time home buyer, can you capture some of these deals? Well, first, we got to talk about what actually is a foreclosure. And I know this is pretty basic information for some of you, but a foreclosure is basically when a homeowner can't make their payments and the lender or the bank is going to essentially take the house back or the collateral back. And this can happen in 4 different phases. So the first phase we're going to talk about is the short sale. Now, the short sale is when a homeowner owes more on the house than it's worth on the market, and they have to sell essentially short. So an example is a homeowner owes, let's say, $400,000, but the house is only worth $300,000. In order to sell it, they had to get approval to the bank to sell it for that $300,000 because they still actually owe $400,000. Now, as a first-time buyer, you can potentially get that home for under market value. Next, we're going to talk about the pre-foreclosure. Now, these are people who are delinquent in their mortgages, but they may have equity in the home. The bank hasn't really gone through the whole foreclosure process yet. And depending on where you are, it could take up to a year before the foreclosure process is actually complete. So in the pre-foreclosure stage, the homeowner still has legal right to do whatever they want with the home. They still own the property. So this doesn't create much of an opportunity for the first-time buyer because if the owner has equity, they're not very hard pressed to sell at a discount. They're probably going to try to get as much money as they can from the sale and then go out and kind of live their life, right? So don't think that you're most likely going to get a deal that way. Is it possible? Yes. Is it probable? I don't think so. The next thing we're going to talk about is auctions. Yep, you've probably heard this, especially if you like to watch HGTV and all those do-it-yourself fix and flip shows. You see a lot of the investors go out and purchase properties at auction. This is when the bank forecloses on the home and they essentially sell it at a place that the county designates. It could be the county court house, the steps of the courthouse. It could be some other place like a hotel. It just really depends on how they set it up, right? But essentially what happens is people come into the auction and they bid on these properties. Now, if you've seen an auction, it doesn't really sound like
25 at a number on 30, down 5 at a number on 35 at a number on 40, 45 at a number on 50, sold.
it doesn't really sound like that, but you kind of get the idea. That's what happens is everybody's bidding on these properties trying to get a good deal. Now, for a first-time home buyer, this is probably not the route that you want to take. One, it takes quite a bit of money to even get involved in the auction. Sometimes it's a $10,000 cashier's check that they want up front. If you don't buy the property, you get your cashier's check back. If you get the property, they use that toward the purchase price. Now, here's the problem for some first-time home buyers. You are most likely purchasing this property sight unseen. So you don't know if there's problems with the foundation, with the roof, with the plumbing, with the electrical. You don't know if there's squatters inside of the property or it's just totally vandalized because the previous owner got mad at the lender and totally trashed that place. So most times you don't get to do an inspection on a auction property. So you have to be very careful if this is the route that you're going to take, because there are many people, investors included, who have lost money purchasing auction properties. And finally, we're going to talk about real estate owned, or REO. Now, if a property doesn't sell at auction, the lender or the bank seizes control of the asset or the property, and now they own it. In other words, real estate owned. The bank now owns the property. Now they're going to hire a real estate agent, or if it's a larger bank, they probably have a team of agents already inside. They're going to do everything they can to get that property up to speed, put it back on the market, and actually try to sell it above market value, because they want to recoup all the costs that they just spent putting it into foreclosure, taking it to auction, having to maintain the property. They want to recoup some of that money back, right? But they're still pressed to get it off of their books because it's a non-performing asset. It's not bringing the bank or the lender any money. And as such, you may or may not be able to get a great deal from purchasing an REO property. Now, depending on kind of what your timeline is, how savvy you are, how much cash you have, any of these could potentially work, but only one of them is one that I would highly recommend if you're a first-time buyer. You probably want to know what that is. And here's the thing. I'm going to say go for the short sale. Now, the short sale isn't necessarily promised, right? Because for one, even though the owner is going to sell it short, they still have to get approval through the bank. And the process could take anywhere from 6 months to a year in order to close. Anything could happen in that amount of time, right? But you may be able to get the property at a discounted value based on the short sale. Now, I told you in the pre-foreclosure, if the owner has equity, which most do right now, there might not be a chance for you to get it at a discount. Do you want to really go through an auction and bid? Because you have to come up with those funds before you leave, or within 24 hours, almost whichever comes first. And then the REO, the bank is probably going to try to sell it at or above where the market value is at, because they want to recoup some of their costs. Even though they want to get that thing off their books, they're still looking at how can we make money out of this. So your greatest chance is probably going through the short sale. Now, again, it's probably going to take a little bit extra time, but you can get that property for pennies on the dollar. So I hope this one helps for all you first-time buyers out there who are looking for an advantage in order to get into the market, but are having some challenges in terms of the types of houses that you can afford, the neighborhoods that you can go in, or just you simply don't have the cash or the equity or anything like that to be able to afford it. This can be your way to get in. Now, I say all of that not to make light of somebody's situation of going through. You definitely want to be sensitive to that, as certainly I am. But again, this could be a way that you can get yourself into the market by not paying the same type of prices that are up here. Now, if you found this information useful, please subscribe to the channel, ring that bell so you're notified when I drop future editions of Info on the Go. And as always, please, I encourage you, leave comments. I love the dialogue. I love to talk. I'm a chatty catty, or chatty patty, or, well, you get the point. I will respond to your comments as they come in. Now, again, I just want to thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate your support. And as always, I'll see you next time.